Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pacers Daily. I'm your host, Hery Acosta. Here talking about a few more subjects like we always do, but to start it off, we're going to talk about Ben Simmons. I know I talked about him a few episodes ago, but I just kept on reading more and more outlets talking about Pacers potentially signing him on a minimum contract. Personally, I'm not a fan of that. I just don't think he brings to the Pacers what we're looking for. Um, he does not bring that heart, that desire, just what the Pacers need in a player, and especially not as a backup point guard role. You put him next to McConnell, I would rather have McConnell, always. No, don't get me wrong. Ben Simmons in his prime looked to be one of the next big things, but everything just started unraveling, and, after a while, it just didn't look good. And after a short stint with the Clippers, all those restless years on the Nets, whatever the heck was going on in Philly, had his All-Star days in Philly, and then was part of that James Harden trade. And ever since then, Simmons has kind of not even really been a topic in the NBA. From first overall pick in 2016, Magic Johnson comparisons, triple-double threat. Everyone was really wondering if he was going to be that next big player. MVP caliber. People were thinking, oh, this guy could win MVP. This guy could be a finals winner, a finals MVP. But he has never reached that level. And I just don't think that he's going to reach that in Indiana if he decides to come here. And now the next one, I only want to talk about it because it was one of the only things I really read up on. There is a trade proposal from the Lakers that lands us Gabe Vincent and a first-round pick in 2028 for Jarris Walker to LA. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, it's not that Gabe Vincent is a bad player by any means, but the last few seasons he has not been the same player he was in Miami. He has been in and out of rotations for LA. When he does play, very inefficient, very inconsistent. Not the same, absolutely not the same Gabe Vincent that helped his team reach a finals and was one of those undrafted gems that the Heat had over the years, along with Duncan Robinson, along with Max Strus. Max Strus has done his work in Cleveland. Now Duncan Robinson's going off to Detroit. He's probably going to end up doing his stuff. But Gabe Vincent has not done well for himself in the last few seasons. In and out of trade rumors as well. People thought that the Lakers were just going to get rid of him. But still on that roster. Now, the reason I also don't like this proposal is, number one, they were calling Walker a draft bust. Like, no, absolutely not. Now, has he lived up to his full potential? No, but he is still he's about to be 22 years old. There is still a lot of time for him to be something. I mean, people were calling Chauncey Billups a draft bust when he first started in the league. He was traded in his rookie season. And then what? Became an NBA champion, became a finals MVP, 6-time All-Star. People were calling players like Joe Johnson a draft bust at first. Oladipo a draft bust at first. Sometimes players just, need time to develop. Now, if Walker doesn't develop on the Pacers and ends up developing on another team, that's great. I'm very happy for him. I still think he's got massive potential. Just has to find his footing with the Pacers. But this trade in itself, absolutely not a good trade proposal in my opinion. If Walker's going to go, it's either going to be for a star or for some picks, because Walker is not just going to get traded for Gabe Vincent. And now, talk a little about Isaiah Jackson. His career averages are 7 points, 4 rebounds, but obviously that's mainly off the bench. But this is the time. This is the absolute time for him to have a career season. And I really do think he can have a career season, just because he fits a certain type of role that the Pacers haven't utilized much over the last few years outside of Sabonis. That just traditional center. Doesn't need to space the floor to be effective. Can defend anyone in the paint. Can play in the paint. Now, I'm not saying that Turner couldn't play in the paint, but I would rather have Isaiah Jackson in the paint over Turner just because Turner gets bodied whenever he's on offense. And I'm not saying that there's not gonna be defenders that might outdo Jackson when he's going up on offense. But it's just that's his game. His game is in there. He's not gonna help space out the floor. He is gonna run pick and rolls. Him and Nemhard, it's probably gonna be a very nice pick and roll game. But just the competition for center is gonna be very entertaining just because I think Jay Huff and Wiseman both have quality starter minutes in them. And any of them could honestly be the week one starter. Now, obviously, I think it's going to be Jackson, and I hope it's Jackson. But just look for advanced minutes for the other centers, just because there is going to be a huge competition throughout the whole season. It's not just going to be through training camp or anything. It's going to be all year. There's going to be like, okay, this week Jackson's kind of playing subpar, but Jay Huff has been very good. So Jay Huff will start. Or these two are struggling. James Wiseman's having a crazy run. Let's start Wiseman. So there is a lot to fall back on. And it's also going to piggyback me into my next topic, which is just talking about a midseason trade. Now, last season we needed a trade just because we had lost two centers pretty early in the season. So we traded for Thomas Bryant. We also traded away James Wiseman during the trade deadline, which wasn't that big at the time just because he was injured and didn't really get much out of it. But this year, depending on how everyone plays, I could see some midseason trades. I'm going to keep on looking and probably make an episode about players to target in the midseason rather than the offseason, just because the offseason's kind of died down a little bit. But there's definitely going to be some players to look at that could end up in a Pacers uniform by maybe January or February. I mean, Siakam ended up here in a January. So, you could see a star player come in here. Probably some of our role players traded for him. But overall, I just think that this is going to be a very interesting one to look at just because there are so many players that can fit our system or that can just thrive in the way that the Pacers play and just getting them more opportunities. So that's going to be something I'm going to continue to look at and make an episode about just some trade targets and then maybe just talk about some trade proposals. But as always, I'm your host, Hery Acosta. This is Pacers Daily. Boom, baby, and go Sirs.